Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting panel here at New York Comic Con, sort of like during the week, right? So we're here today with more people that have been featured on X's for Podcast, and I can't wait to talk to everybody. But first, introductions. I'm Nico. You guys can find me at Nico Action on Instagram and Twitter. That's NICOACTION. Nathan, introduce
Hey, I'm Nathan. You can find me at Dazzler AOA on Twitter and Instagram.
Sweet. Josh, hit me with the deets.
I'm Josh. You can find me at Asleep at the Wheel, WEIL on Twitter, and at asleepattthewheel.com.
I have to ask where we can find, and if you can introduce yourself, beautiful, amazing Miss Demanda Martini.
Hi, I'm Demanda Martini. You can find me at Demanda Martini, DMANDA Martini, at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pornhub. I mean, just kidding.
Well, speaking of hot and porn, I want to throw it to the guy who has been on both of these panels with me. I'm so excited. Rod, tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. I'm Rodders. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawksrod, HAUXROD, and I'm ready to start this panel.
Well, we just got one more person to say hi to, and I'm pretty sure this is their first panel, so everybody be kind and gentle, although he's never held an opinion, so don't worry about that. Everybody, say hi to Arturo.
Hi, guys. I'm Mr. Toybox on Twitter and Instagram, and ready to pop my panel cherry.
Oh, God, and I can't even tell you how amazed I am that I've kept these introductions down to less than 2 minutes. This is brilliant. Okay, so today's panel content is going to be examining the inclusivity and diversity as it evolved over the students that attended the X universities. Now, the idea of the X university is a transformative thing. It's not just beholden to Graymalkin Place. It's actually an idea. It's an idea that has older mutants wanting to look out for younger mutants and occasionally endanger them for personal gain. So there would be no better place to start than with, of course, the 05. Now, the way these games work is just jump in when you know the answer. There's no prizes, so there's nothing to worry about, right? So I want to start things off with, for the strangest teens of all time, they weren't really that strange at first. As a matter of fact, they were barely teens so much as they were high-energy young white men. Now, Sunfire and Banshee at least offered some international flair. At least they had accented dialogue. But, the two people who were treated as the strangest were the two women that were initially in the X-Men's ranks. Who were the first two women to be formal members of the X-Men?
Jean Grey and Polaris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we not buzzing in?
Oh, no, there's no buzzing in.
Sorry.
No, you just shout.
Represent.
Absolutely. And, when I think about Polaris, I can't help but think about some of the exciting things that she's been going through in the pages of X Factor. She's a character who has been mistreated and maligned and treated as an owned piece of property, and no woman is property. And it's really been a tremendous thing to see her transformation through the years. Demanda, I know you stan a Claremazonian queen. When you think about where these women began and where they are now, what do you think about in terms of the evolution of the honesty of the female portrayal?
So one of my favorite things has actually been following the Claremont run on Twitter and all of his little, fun little factoids. So during Claremont's run, he really sort of bent the gender and made things way more about the women. There were more women on the team. None of them were the typical, my big giant hair that is completely impractical to fight in, my skimpy suits. It was all about here's my jacket, here's my utilitarian boots. I'm gonna punch somebody. Even Storm lost all of her big hair, went full Mohawk punk. That and the big one, the two big ones are for me anyway are Kitty Pryde and Rachel Summers, who Kitty started off super soft, and then she also went a little bit punk for a bit when she had her coming of age in the Wolverine Kitty Pryde miniseries. She cut off all of her hair to be boom, I'm ready. Rachel always had her buzz cut mullet going on, which was great.
Party in the front, party in the back, party on top, party in the USA.
Yeah, just all over. Because she was, again, speaking of someone treated like property, she was treated like property for most of her life up to that point. So she's I don't need hair. whatever.
Well, speaking of not needing hair, the only unique, really different looking member of the team originally was Iceman, as Angel had wings that were frequently tucked away. Beast was just, thick hot. Cyclops had the visor. There was so little that made them strange. It really wasn't until the New Mutants that things got a little bit more interesting. Now, in 1982, the New Mutants were first introduced, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but the New Mutants graphic novel missed its ship date by 2 weeks because Bob McLeod was getting married, and he ran a little long on his honeymoon. So I can't think of a better reason for the book to ship a little bit late. Now, McLeod himself would ultimately leave the title after roughly the 8th issue, having received a bunch of help from industry legend Sal Buscema on inks, and then ultimately taking over the art duties on the title because he felt that the title had kind of lost what he had been brought in to do. But speaking of that, the initial team of the New Mutants was rather short-lived. Who wants to try naming? We can even all name one. Let's try and all name the original 5 New Mutants.
Karma.
Karma. Got Karma and Sunspot.
Danny.
Danny.
Psych.
Right?
Wolfsbane.
Wolfsbane, and we got one more.
Cannonball.
Cannonball. Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, we saw a little bit more different characterization here. We saw a woman who was incredibly self-possessed of her own strength in the form of Mirage, Psyche, Danny Moonstar, whatever you want to call her in that moment. We had a less active male leader in the form of Cannonball, who was a little bit goofy. And we had a Wolverine in Sunspot, who, when he transformed, literally became like darkness personified. In fact, this next few New Mutants kind of pushed that visual evolution. Did anybody here have a strong reaction to the visual revolution that went on in the pages of New Mutants under the pens of guys like Bill Sienkiewicz?
I mean, I'm going to jump right in. Sorry if... I'm like, sorry, I already talked. Well, I was going to say with Sunspot in particular, his representation of being an Afro-Brazilian and his powers literally manifesting to make him even blacker as people are calling him racial slurs and beating him on the soccer field was really powerful, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Definitely.
Now, Rod, I mean, you are a man of color living in the South. Like, that is such an important... that it's you to have representation for that is so important. When you read that when you were growing up and you connected with this idea of the New Mutants, how did you feel about the representation of Sunspot losing control to his anger?
Well, I mean, I definitely identified with it because there's been many times, even as a Black person, as a gay person, everything in between, there's a lot of times where you get bullied or called names or just picked on in general, where you just want to lose your shit and just go crazy. But if you do, then you're seen as the angry Black person, the sassy gay man, all this other like stereotypical things. So you have to keep calm and not go outside the box. So being able to see like kind of myself in a comic and seeing them actually like take charge of the situation a little bit and actually fight back was good to see, in my opinion.
How about you guys? I'm going to open it up to the panel. How did you guys feel about the depictions of a much angrier team in the form of the original 5 New Mutants, who also took on a visually more dynamic, stranger outward appearance?
I would say I loved the original New Mutants team because you had 3 women on the team. You had 3 minorities on the team. It wasn't just a whole lot of the same, normal old white person that you always saw that you always saw in like the original X-Men,
just
right?
An entire team of Xaviers as far as the eye can see.
But I just loved how different it was. It was just so cool to see everything like open up. Like when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a dated reference, but I remember like at the time, New Mutants kind of felt like an ad for Benetton, and it was like, you know what I mean? It was like, and the only like white blonde person on it was distinctly goofy and white trashy and not, this handsome leading man. So it was just unexpected, It was like, and it was just, I think, kind of ahead of its time in terms of representation. And there's a lot of, and I can't really speak to this part of it, but like, it could be a little problematic and a little bit tokenizing of people and like, you know, we got one this and one that, but I don't know, man. At the time, I didn't see it through that lens. It just felt like, wow, these are heroes that don't look like other heroes I've ever seen.
Well,
and that's so cool.
I'm completely with you, because when I get to that last couple of pages of who's scaring Stevie, and there's all Kitty Pryde saying all the words Kitty Pryde should never ever say, I just want to like disappear. I can't do it. I get itchy. And,
I was also going to say, as far as representation goes,
Kitty does say a lot of problematic shit, and I get that nowadays, like that would never fly, and I'm not saying it was okay then, but I'm saying the impact of reading it, I think, did more good than harm, because it kind of pushed a conversation that was a little uncomfortable, but it was, I think, necessary. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of defend some of Kitty's horrible moments from the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see what they were trying to do. It's like when, speaking of Kitty Pryde, and like in her Guardians run, when she was talking about the concentration camps and everything, they were trying to make, you know, give notice to that and give representation to that. I think this, the way the times were back then, they could have done it better, but they were trying to make a difference, to give notice to certain wrongdoings. It's just, it could have been done better, but you know,
for sure,
at least they tried.
And I think this is one of those times where the creator's intent, like you have to take that into consideration. Like, sure, some of the execution was clumsy and ham-fisted, but the intention was right, you know. And I think so, you can knock Claremont for a lot of things, but like his heart was in the right place.
So I was going to say, so as far as inclusion goes, I also like the fact that the 3 female characters also were completely different body types. It wasn't like, it wasn't just like, hey, here are white blonde women. So like that was definitely something that I enjoyed.
Wasn't a J. Scott Campbell lineup.
yeah, right. But as far as Kitty Pryde goes, I mean, she was created to be the sort of the child that all of the children reading were supposed to sort of like get in with, and having her be that sort of spokesperson for you know, that sort of the demographic. And it was like, hey, kids actually, like, you know, want to start talking about all of this stuff, so let's get them to start talking about it. So who do we use? Oh, Kitty, because she's the loudmouth that we created to do this. So I mean, a lot of people, you got kind of like what Arturo was saying, like you have to take a step back and be like, okay, so is this character really a terrible person, or was the creator really trying to like use them to do something else?
Well, now I absolutely agree with your statement here, in that why was this character created to do something? And I have a question that I'm going to be pitching to you, Josh. I have to see how deep this well goes, or this wheel, as it were. So everybody remembers from just a couple of minutes ago when we established that the original 5 New Mutants were Cannonball, Karma, Mirage, Sunspot, and Wolfsbane. Now, we saw a few more New Mutants come in the next few issues. We saw Magma, we saw Magic, Cypher, and Warlock, but it wasn't for quite a while until we saw the inclusion of 2 more New Mutants. By any chance, do you remember the New Mutants that were added in roughly the 50s and 70s of New Mutants? Josh? Because these are terrible.
Are we talking Birdbrain and Gossamer?
Oh, we are! Oh, you make me so proud!
I was like, yes, Z list.
Yes!
That was a deep cut.
I'm bleeding. It was so deep. Oh my God. My surgeon is concerned I'm going to press charges. So that was spec-friggin-tacular. Oh man, that made me so proud. Now, they weren't the only sort of Z-listers that we were pelted with throughout the 1980s. The 1980s also saw in 1984 the introduction of the Hellions. In 1987, the introduction of the Fallen Angels. And in 1988, we got the Exterminators. So I have to know, guys, with characters like Cat's Eye, Empath, Jetstream, Roulette, and Taro, and Thunderbird being Hellions, with Vanisher, Gomi, Ariel, Chan, Sunspot, Siren, Multiple Man's Multiples, Boom Boom, Moonboy, Devil Dinosaur, Warlock. I don't think I can say some of those names on YouTube. And Exterminators also having a few more people in the form of Fire Fist. Wait, no. That's Hold on, my
Rusty
notes.
Collins.
Rusty Collins. I'm having a
Yeah.
slow moment. I'm just going to pretend that was my internet flashing out and that nothing happened bad. That Rusty showed up in the pages of New Mutants shortly thereafter. There was a massive transformation in the mid 80s. It really brought new back into it. But we also saw a big change in who the characters were. Instead of Boom Boom being, a down on her luck girl just trying to make it in the big city, ma. Boom Boom's got problems, okay? Richter's got problems. They went out of their way to give normal people
Boom Boom
normal
still
people.
got problems.
They gave everybody problems. How did you guys feel about the newening of the New Mutants to this much more severe tone? And how do you guys feel that reflected in the diversity and inclusion that the book was looking to promote?
Well, I mean, personally, I always love when characters get in a crazy situation or problems that real life people have. Because I feel like there's always someone going through that same problem or a problem like that. So someone can identify with it. And if someone identifies with it, then I guess the artist kind of wins because it gets their point across. No matter how
it
it's
wins.
taken.
I like that.
It wins.
Wins.
So that was like kind of my entry point to New Mutants was right around that time. Kind of the Genosha story and like the Extinction Agenda, when they were going through a lot of changes. Like coincidentally enough, one of my first New Mutant issues was when Warlock died. So that might become relevant again soon.
No.
Yeah.
Not Warlock, when Doug died.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
Oh, yes.
they only
Which,
died like 2.5
it's
years
kind of
apart.
they're
So,
kind
like,
of they're one, you guys. They're soulmates.
They really are.
The thing that I loved the most about that era was instead of it feeling like a team with villains, it was more like rivals. It felt like there was this environment with people that had different perspectives, different entry points, different different contours to the dynamic. It wasn't it wasn't so black and white, and I thought that was so cool. And you brought up Warpath, and I love him so much as a character, and the fact that he came over from the Hellions and eventually joined with the I love that. I love a good redemption story.
And I always
I
like the
thought they did
Hellions
a really great job early on of highlighting that they were rivals and not bad teams. Like the Hellions were not the bad guys. They weren't the bad mutants. Even exterminators with X Factor. Like they were just different groups of kids at different schools, and they did a really good job with the early story where Ileana was bouncing through time and she couldn't keep her stuff straight, and they saw that all the kids were with the Hellions at the Massachusetts Academy, and oh no, they went evil. And then when the time came around, they found out that no, they're just all chilling together. Emma was helping everyone get over their shit and work through their trauma. They weren't bad. They were the rivals. They were just another group of it wasn't, which is also really important for me because that was the team that had that had the Muslim kid and that had your Roma girl and that had it was portraying different. And to make the tokens of that be the bad ones, would have been kind of sideways. But they always recognized each other. Danny and Warpath always recognized each other. Thunderbird, Danny and James always recognized each other, and they had that handshake, and they were cool even if other people were fighting.
Now, I just want to point out, editor's note, you made this point gorgeously in the episode that drops tomorrow of X's for Podcast about understanding the difference between a rival and a nemesis. You spoke about it extensively, specifically in regard to Apocalypse, alongside Arturo and our newest member, Robbie. Super excited, super stoked. So if you guys want to hear that amazing podcast episode, it is our official response to the X of Swords Ohatmu. So you definitely want to pick that up tomorrow, anywhere you pick up podcasts for free.
Or official handbook for anyone else that
it's the Ohatmu sauce. We all know what it is. Now, I have a question though about these New Mutants because Marvel wasn't done with them yet. While there would come new iterations, there was a short-lived New Mutants miniseries in 1997. And what I thought was interesting about this Mutant miniseries, Truth or Death, is that it allowed for some changes to the characters. Nathan, this is something you have spoken extensively about on the internet. Specifically, the character evolution of Karma from oh, that other one, to I'm so gay. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about how incredibly gay Karma got.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, like, I loved the evolution of her from, she was just the really quiet girl to the girl who shows up in X-475, who's got the short pink hair, and she's like hanging out with the lesbian filmmakers, and she's talking with Danny. She's like, "Oh no, Sam's really not my type." She's like, "No, you can have a crush on him, not me." But yeah, especially with that miniseries, I loved the evolution of her not just having the one specific side talent. It kind of gave her more of a broader telepathy power that haven't really touched on as much since, but I love that evolution of it for her.
And she got to go from being the Vietnamese girl to being the gay Vietnamese girl, because until there's more representation, unfortunately, a lot of these characters are that one. As we were saying earlier, it becomes sort of tokenism, which it's the best meant tokenism. It's hard to explain why it's a problem, but as we seem to get more and more of these characters coming in, there's a lot more room for growth. And it would be hard to talk about the strangest teens of all time without talking about everybody's favorite 90s disaster project in a very good way. But Generation X never quite lived up to what it was meant to be. Unfortunately, whether it's because Lobdell and Bacalo left the book within the first 25 issues and the next main writer on the book, who was supposed to be James, is going to kill me. I just can't think of his name. But he left after 3 issues. James Robinson, thank you. Left after 3 issues, leaving the book in the hands of a much older writer. Larry Hama, phenomenal writer when it comes to Wolverine, gave us the amazing Albert and LCD. Who can complain about that? But maybe giving him teenagers was a little tough. Now, I bring this up because the original Generation X lineup was Chamber, missing his damn face, Husk, missing her damn skin, Jubilee, who, if you say a bad word about Jubilee, I have the power to disconnect you from this webcam session. Bye-bye. Monet, who represented so many beautiful elements of inclusion. She is living proof, character living proof of the evolution of the X-Men, as well as Sync. There was so much melanin on this team, and then everybody was kind of melty on top of that. Guys, Strangeness finally became strange in the 90s. What did you guys think about that transformation of X-Men when Generation X hit?
You didn't even mention Skin. Talk about...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I literally have Skin and Sync next to each other in my notes, so I just skipped one into the other. Skin is melty. He's very melty. Very, very pudding. In a good way, but pudding. Now, how did you guys feel about the transformation of the X-Men into...
This was my team. I was in junior high when this came out, which I think is pretty much... I think that's the age you're going to be at when you look up to, like, teen characters. Because I know, like, I was graduating high school around, like, 18, 19 when New X-Men hit. But I wasn't, like, 18, 19-year-old me was focused on way more fucked up things than Quentin Quire. But when I was in junior high, like, Generation X was, like, the perfect, like, teenagers are where I looked to because it was, like, the next thing. And I was the perfect age to just completely embrace and the 90s and Husk and Chamber and his sad emo boy and her type A girl and, Monet's just attitude and, giving Jubilee a hard time when poor Jubilee didn't deserve it, and Sync just cluelessly walking between them, not realizing that, like, every girl was dripping wet once he passed by, like, all of that, and just loving it all. And Sean, like, getting a good positive male role model, and the way that they split up.
Sean getting that hot body.
Oh my gosh, in those short shorts.
Sean was so hot.
Every time they split up, like, this is one of the things I look back on it too, is that, like, okay, the girls had these antagonistic relationships when, everyone was together. But whenever they split and it was just the girls or just the boys, like, the girls had this very different relationship. Like, they were much more like sisters. They supported each other. The boys too, like, the boys would separate and they would stop being macho and they would actually, like, talk about, like, their feelings. And, they were always trying to, like, help Jono, like, just trying to help him get through his stuff. Like, they were supportive of each other in a way that, like, this was the on-ramp into like Dawson's Creek, teens that just talk about their emotions so much. And I have no idea why my whole generation has as many mental problems as we do, because you think we would have learned something from the 90s.
Well, and I want to actually bring that up. We have Sync and we have Skin, who represented only the second full like X-Man who was a black man, and we have Sync, who was one of the first really Latino X-Men. So I want to really give the rest of our time to Rod and Arturo, and then we'll all do a great sign-off and goodbye. But I think we talked a little too much to get to all of the questions. But NBD, one of the questions was about the Daydreamers. Rod and Arturo, go.
Arturo, I'll let you go first, buddy.
I don't have a whole lot to say about Skin, to be honest with you. I know I brought it up before when you didn't mention them, but yeah, I mean, to the point that Josh was making, these kids felt so new and different from everything that had come before. They were like a culmination of the 90s. They were the 90s brought to its logical conclusion. And yeah, I loved it. I loved that era. I loved that time. I loved looking back and the Emma Frost and Banshee of it all. And Monet, just like seeing Monet get the attention she deserves now feels so right. Yeah, it's great. I'm just so happy to see all of these great characters kind of back in the mix, and I just want more of it, just like everybody else. I want these fools that are in the vault to come out. I want,
please,
I want a Generation X book.
I'm going to drop it over to Rodders real quick before we go into the vault ourselves, and then say our goodbyes. Rod, hit me with how you felt seeing more representation.
I mean, I absolutely loved it. I honestly, like Arturo said, I wanted more, like we're getting now, at least with Monet, not with Sync. He's in the vault. But the fact that they both were there, especially like Monet and Sync, especially they were there and what they did, and they were just normal people. They weren't like as much tokenized, and they could just basically be themselves, which was very nice to see. Like I said, I love characters that can just have like real life stories and real life problems and just be real life jerks sometimes, because that's relatable. And we got to see that, and it made me feel more included into the stories.
Oh man, I love that. And so we're unfortunately at the end of our panel. We have about 2 minutes left. So I want to give everybody a chance to tell you where you can find them and get to know a little bit more about them, and to give everybody a chance to say their favorite Teen X title. For me, my favorite X teens ever, that's going to be Wolverine and the X-Men by Jason Aaron, especially with art by Nick Bradshaw. My Nick Bradshaw is hanging up on my ceiling, and I'm not going to take it down because it will fall on me. But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. And I'm going to kick it over to Nathan. Favorite team and where we can find you.
All right, my favorite team has to be the New Mutants, like Karma and Mirage. Love those guys. So you can find me online at Dazzler AOA on Twitter and Instagram.
I love it. And as always, you can find him on X's for Podcast every week. Josh, Mr. Gen X, where can we find you, and who's your favorite X team? Teen team. X-Teen team.
Here's my favorite X team. Here's my favorite X team. My favorite X team is Generation X. And you can find me at Asleep at the Wheel, WEIL on Twitter, and at asleepattthewheel.com.
Oh, fan-fucktastic. Can't even tell you. Demanda, I got to know, as our reigning queen, tell us, number one, who you're wearing. Thank you. Number two, where we can find you and your favorite X-Teen team.
So I am currently Martinique Jason, the third mastermind, from her original appearance in Wolverine and Havoc Meltdown. So my favorite teen team is definitely the new X-Men, around like the time that, the school, like, everybody had their teams. That was super fun for me. Love that. And you can find me at Demanda Martini on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Amazing. Rod, favorite teen team and where we can find you.
My favorite team is the New Mutants, solely because of Danny Moonstar and Magic. Everybody else can be switched out. I don't care. Everyone can find me at Hawksrod. That's HAUXROD on Instagram and Twitter.
And Arturo, the sexiest mustache since the Brawny Man. Where can everybody find you online, and what's your favorite X-Teen team?
Mr. Toybox on Twitter and Instagram. And for favorite teen team, I'm going to go with X-Force after they were the New Mutants, when they were the paramilitary group hanging out with Daddy Cable and cool wine mom Domino. And you were talking about that. I mean, I just love that era. I love that time. I love seeing the kids kind of grow up and kind of what they do after they graduate. So.
Well, speaking of time, we are at that time. Guys, it has been amazing having you here to talk about the strangest X team of all time. This has been Nathan, Josh, Amanda, Rod, Arturo, and Nico. And I, of course, been wearing a Magneto Was Right t-shirt, which my husband pointed out looks to me like genitals. Everybody, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening. And guys, we will see you soon. Actually, we'll see you next week.